Rogue One director speaks out on the Star Wars movie's legacy. People don't shout that I ruined their childhood. When Rogue One, a Star Wars story, debuted in theaters on December 16, 2016, fans braced themselves. It wasn't Episode 8, IX, or one of the numbered classics that defined an entire generation. It was a spin-off, a standalone tale that dared to step outside the familiar arcs of Skywalkers, Jedi Knights, and the Force. And yet, almost instantly, Rogue One became one of the most discussed entries in the Star Wars canon. Some hailed it as daring and innovative. Others, well, let's just say not everyone saw it that way. For director Gareth Edwards, being at the helm of such a polarizing piece of the Star Wars universe carried its unique kind of pressure. Edwards was no stranger to big themes and sweeping visuals. His work on Godzilla proved he could handle scope. But this was different. This was Star Wars, the cultural mythology that shaped countless childhoods, inspired generations of filmmakers, and sat on the personal altars of fans worldwide. In the years since the release, Edwards has watched Rogue One become something of a cultural touchstone, a film that didn't just tell a story, but also challenged what a Star Wars movie could be. And now, years later, he's finally breaking his silence on the legacy of the film, the reactions from fans, and the weight of inheriting one of the most beloved fictional universes in history. People don't shout that I ruined their childhood, Edwards says with a small laugh in a rare interview. Not anymore, anyway. It's a humorous admission, but behind it is something more profound. An understanding of what Rogue One represented, not just in the Star Wars franchise, but in storytelling itself. The burden and gift of legacy. When Edwards first signed on to direct Rogue One, he knew he was stepping into a world bigger than any one film. Star Wars is mythology in motion, a saga that spans decades, genres, and emotions. It's not merely an entertainment franchise, it's a shared language. The thing that fascinated me most, Edwards reflects, was the opportunity to tell a story that felt like it mattered in the universe. He was not interested in another Skywalker saga retread. Instead, he saw something inherently human, and dare we say, raw, in the idea of ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances. Rogue One follows a group of rebels who, unlike the heroes of the main episodes, don't receive grand destinies or magical destinies. They are engineers, soldiers, idealists, people who fight because they must, not because prophecy tells them to. They are flawed. They are vulnerable. And their story culminates in one of the most unforgettable sacrifices in Star Wars history. This was no mere adventure film. It was a war story. And that was where some of the early controversy sprouted. When expectations clashed with innovation, fan reactions to Rogue One were mixed at first. Some fans, conditioned by traditional Star Wars narratives of chosen ones and galactic saviors, found the film's darker tone jarring. There were rumors, often exaggerated or unfounded, that segments of the fanbase were outraged, claiming that Rogue One somehow dishonored their memories of Star Wars. I remember reading some of those reactions, Edwards says, leaning back. At first, it was a jolt. You do this job because you want people to connect with what you're making. But once you step back, you realize that every story that matters stirs emotion. Strong emotion. And that's the rub for rich, beloved universes like Star Wars. They belong to everyone and no one at once. Fans feel a sense of ownership. And that's not inherently bad. In fact, it's a testament to how deeply the stories have embedded themselves into our cultural fabric. But with that attachment comes expectation, and sometimes, resistance to change. Edwards was well aware of that dynamic going in. When asked what he most feared about directing Rogue One, his answer wasn't about box office numbers or studio pressure. It was the fear of disappointing people who held Star Wars close to their hearts. I didn't want to let people down, he says. I knew that if this film didn't feel like Star Wars to people, if it didn't resonate with the emotion and wonder that made the originals special, then I'd have failed. Not in a box office sense, but in a human sense. Reframing the narrative. In the years since the film's release, perceptions have shifted dramatically. What was once controversial is now regarded by many as one of the strongest entries in the modern Star Wars era. Film critics praised its gritty realism. Fans rewatched it again and again. In its climactic final act, a quiet march into chaos, where hope is both fragile and fierce, became a defining moment in the franchise. Edwards doesn't dismiss the early criticism outright. It was part of the journey, he notes. When people first see something unfamiliar in a beloved universe, there's a natural reaction. But over time, I think viewers saw what we were trying to do. Instead of a traditional hero's arc, Rogue One offers what some fans now call a hero's sacrifice. Instead of destiny, it explores choice. Instead of prophecy, it gives us purpose. Hope isn't a guarantee, Edwards muses. It's something you fight for. That's what this movie was about. And if people now see that, if they feel that when they watch it, then that means something. The art of taking risks. What makes Rogue One's legacy particularly compelling is not just the story it told, but the fact that it dared to be different. Most big franchise films tread a careful line. They innovate just enough to feel fresh, but not so much that they upset the familiar balance. We're looking at you, cinematic universes that churn out sequel